Good evening, and welcome to Think About It Thursday. My name is Henry Dotson, founder of Our Journeys of Faith Life Coaching. This is our weekly Think About It Thursday broadcast that we do. Last week, we did not have one, and the reason why was because we lost our internet. So we weren't able to do much of anything with that, and it was out for a few hours. So for those of you who were looking for us last week, that's why we weren't there. So hopefully you've come back to see us, and we're glad that you're back. So we didn't talk about that topic there that was on that week, and maybe we'll get back to it sometime. But we're just moving on, and we'll figure out if you're interested. Read the posts that are on the social media sites, and you'll get what we were talking about last week. So anyway, the Think About It Thursday issue that we have for this week is, let's see if we can bring it up here. Hang on, I'm playing my own producer, so I'm doing a few things here myself. Um, Think About It Thursdays. So this particular Thursday, the Think About It issue is think about your descent into the valley of dependence. Do you fight against entering that valley? Do you ask God to get you out of your circumstances? And also, do you think about how your character is being shaped while you're in that valley of dependence? So this week we've been talking about the on the cancer journey that you well eventually you will get to. This is a cancer journey of faith, mind you, that you eventually will get into the valley of dependence. And that's what we said on Mindset Monday, is that you will travel through the valley of dependence. And so what that is it's the place where you eventually depend on God completely. You kind of give up relying on your natural talents or gifts or anything else that you have as you try to make it through your cancer journey. You realize that the only way you're going to make it through is to give your total dependence on God. And that doesn't happen right away. Sometimes we think that we can reason it out, we can logic it out. Maybe we can do something, we can talk to the doctors. We try all these means that we think are going to help us. But if you're truly traveling on a cancer journey of faith, at some point you get to that valley of dependence. And that's part of what God wants you to do. He wants you to depend totally on Him. So as you descend down in there, you give up more and more of your attempts or even hopes that you somehow can do some things for yourself that in reality only God can do. And this happens as you travel down that road of trials that we've talked about before. And along the way, you come up with some divine appointments that you know that God is there with you. You battle against the enemy, and you will come up with against an ordeal, or maybe even more than one ordeal. But eventually, as you go through these things on your cancer journey, you will find yourself in the valley of dependence. And at the bottom of the valley is where you will find yourself turning it all over to God. So that's what we want you to think about this week. We said to have that mindset that you must travel through the valley of dependence on your cancer journey of faith. And that's why I say of faith. If you're not traveling by faith, then you won't turn it over to God. But if you are on a cancer journey of faith, eventually you will get to the point where you truly, wholeheartedly turn over all of this to God. And that's the place where He meets you and you feel Him the most, is there once you turn it over. So, as usual, we follow that up with a with our Monday mindset. We go on to our Tip Tuesday, and on this Tip Tuesday, we find a tip from someone that we're all familiar with, and that is Helen Keller. And Helen Keller said, only through experience of trial and suffering can the soul be strengthened. And you might argue that she probably knows something about um, suffering and trials in her life. And this is what she came to the realization after she'd been through that it's only through there that your soul can be strengthened. And that's the same thing for us too in our cancer walk, our cancer journey, that your soul only gets strengthened as you go through these experiences of trials and suffering, and you eventually get into that area where you have to depend on God. So, as we move on from there, we go to our Wisdom Wednesday, and that is, of course, where we look for scriptural references that back up this whole concept of the Valley of Dependence. And this week, we turned to Romans uh, chapter 3, chapter 5, verses 3 um, through 4. I see it says 42, but it's not that long, actually. It's just 3 through 4. And it says, rejoice in your sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope. So as long as you endure and you go through these sufferings, one of the things that's important about it is that it will build up your hope. And the outcome of your faith is hope, because if you strengthen your faith, that means you are stronger in your relationship with God. And to do that, you have to meet him in prayer, and you have to understand him better in his word. And so when you go into prayer, you develop a closer personal relationship with God, and you know that he's real. And if you know that he's real, then you know that his word is real. So as you read his word, also to grow closer to God, you see the promises that he has for you in times of suffering like this. And because you trust him and believe him and know that he's true, when you read about these scriptures that say that he's with you, that he has a greater plan for you, that he will comfort you, and that he is looking for your good, then all of these things are the things that give you hope. And hope is the great thing that you need, because hope will also change your attitude. And again, the experts know that number one, faith has the greatest impact on the outcome of any cancer journey, and hope has an impact on your attitude. And it turns out that the people with the best attitudes as they go through cancer journeys, they also wind up with the better outcomes. So this is why it's vitally important that as you go through this cancer journey, at some point you turn it over totally to God, and you do that in the valley of dependence. And that's when you have moved it from your head to your heart, and you embrace it there. Because intellectually you may think, yes, I have to turn everything over to God, and I'm doing that. But sometimes in practice, we really haven't done that. We're still trying to do things. We may be trying to manipulate something. We're trying to make something happen that we can't seem to make happen. So eventually you get to the point where you just say, I'm going to trust God to make that happen, because there's nothing that I can do. And he wants me to be closer to him and to rely on him. So that's part of this descent into the valley of dependence. So that's what we ultimately need to do. And so scripture bears it out that when you do that, you will wind up with developing your faith and also developing your hope. So this brings us back to our Think About It Thursday. And Think About It Thursday, the question was to think about your descent into the valley of dependence. Do you fight against entering the valley? Do you resist it? Do you don't want to go there? You try to do everything you can not to descend into that valley. Is that what your attitude is as you realize more and more that you can't do for yourself, and that this is out of your hands? Or do you ask God to rescue you from the valley? That as you go further down, you don't want to stay there at all. You want to stay there long. So you pray to God, please, God, let me come out of this and not be going through so much adversity. And he absolutely refuses to do so. And the reason why he does is because he wants you to get to that place where you just say, okay, God, it's really on you. I'm going to stop fighting. I'm going to stop resisting. I'm going to stop trying to find a way out. I'm not going to ask you to rescue me. I'm just going to trust you. And you're going to make the difference here, not me. So he will keep you there until you finally turn it over to him. Totally turn it over to him. Not just say it, not just think it, but not just intellectualize it, but actually embrace it in your heart to actually trust in God. So that's the question that we ask. And then the other one on Think About It Thursday was, do you think about how your character is being shaped? Because when you're going through adversity, that's when your faith is tested, but also your character is shaped. So we may be resisting this, but in reality, if we come through that, we're going to have built up our character. And that is very important in order to move forward and fulfilling your purpose that God has for you. So instead of as Paul did on the road to Damascus, Jesus said, "Well, why you keep kicking against the pricks?" And that was basically, you have some piece of fruit that has pricks on it, so that when you kick it, you stub your toe. He was saying, as Paul was going and finding adversity as he was trying to persecute the Christians, that when he had his transformation, Jesus spoke to him from heaven and said, "Why do you keep kicking against the pricks?" Well, that's the same thing that you're doing if you're trying to fight to not go down into the valley of dependence. Why are you fighting against it? This is where you need to be. And it's not comfortable, but it's necessary. So stop fighting it and be there as long as God needs you to be there, to have his dependence and also to show you things. So that's there that we have with this Think About It Thursday. Also, we have a little time left. So with that time, I'd like to remind you, if you hadn't don't remember from the last time we were on, that we want you to save the date. We have a few dates that our events are coming up that we would like you to participate in. We have 2 one-day workshops on how to transform your cancer journey to a purposeful cancer journey of faith. They're both on Saturdays. One is Saturday, March 11th, and then the next one is Saturday, March 25th. And on those days, it's 8 hours, and we'll have a lunch in there. So you're there really 9 hours if you include the time for lunch. But we're going to go down and figure out what it actually takes. It's an overview, an introduction to this whole transformation process that takes place, that requires transformation, a transformation framework. So we're going to talk about what that means and just give you an introduction to that and you can go either day on the 11th or the 14th. So registration, will be setting that up for you, but we wanted you to kind of hold the date now. And then in April, the 19th, 20th, and 21st, we're going to have a 3-day course where we're really going to get down into it, that the one day just won't do. There's just too much information, and you need the time to hear it. You need the time to absorb it, and you need the time to experience it. And so we have a 3-day course that will be taking place on April 19th, 20th, and 21st. So we'll be more about that. But if you want to mark your calendars and save the date, and we'll be coming out. There is a registration fee for those events, and we want you to attend. So more details about that, but you'll be able to bring along some guests with no extra charge. But we'll get into those details later. So until then, thank you again for showing up for Think About It Thursday. think about having that mindset that you must eventually go into the valley of dependence, and there you will be your closest with God, and you hand it over to Him. So until next week, take care, and we'll see you later. Bye bye.